Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the second SaaStock session this year. Today, we have another set of amazing founders, but this time they actually come from Bosnia. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Kenan and Emina, founders of Motus, a really cool healthcare app that's going to make a wonderful and great exposure in the EU market really very soon. So, Emina and Kenan, welcome. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Nermin, for introduction and kind words. I want to say hi to everyone. Thank you for being here today and wanting to listen to our story. I want to introduce myself and my colleague. My name is Emina Kapetanovic. I'm founder and CEO of startup Motus Health, and today here with me is my co-founder and CEO, Kenan Nazdrajic. We're really honored and thankful for this opportunity here because Balkan Startup does not have enough space for young startups. um, During this meeting session, we will try to keep it as real as we possibly can because we want to show the real startup journey with its ups and downs. And we included the three parts of our story. So we included the beginning of Motus, how our startup went global, and finally the opportunities there are in the European market. So before I describe what our startup does, I think I need to say more about our backstory because it's such a vital part of our startup, and it gives it so much more meaning. So in October 2019, I was 21 years old and I had a pretty normal life. I was an IT student and I found the boyfriend I really loved. But then one morning, my mom screaming woke me up at 5 a.m. She found my dad lying on the floor, unable to move, speak, or communicate. Um, and the doctors told us that he had a stroke so severe that he would either die or spend the rest of his life in vegetative state. I don't remember the next 5 months so much because I probably think it's my PTSD preventing me from reliving the situation. He Basically, when my dad had a stroke, it was such a big shock to us, and he spent the full 5 months in hospitals because that's how severe his state was. And we lived on my mom's small paycheck, which was almost entirely spent on different rehabilitation centers and hospital bills. When the pandemic hit, my dad had to come home, and it was so horrible because we didn't know how to properly take care of a stroke patient. The doctors were exhausted with the pandemic situation and couldn't possibly take care of all their patients, so we were dependent on Google. And those who ever in their life Googled their symptoms of a illness, they probably saw how many inaccuracies and bad prognosis there were. So I kept thinking, how is it possible that in today's day and age, we can't have a solution for after stroke care, and especially when there's 80 million people who currently live with the consequences of stroke. That's when the idea of Motus came up. The Motus is application for rehabilitation and socialization after the stroke. It offers everything a patient and his family need in one place. I gathered a team of medical experts from various expertise and from several different countries to help me build a proof of concept that will offer everything a patient and his family need in one place. This idea won the regional competition, and I wrote a LinkedIn status about it. It gathered almost 200,000 views and 5,000 likes, which led to big media boom. I was suddenly in every media outlet and giving interviews. I was shocked because health conditions usually make are a taboo topic and make people uncomfortable. A lot of people started contacting me, offering me jobs at their companies or wanting to invest in my idea. One of the greatest advice I ever got in my life was to always trust my gut feeling. And with none of these people that contacted me, I never felt the connection that told me this is the opportunity you have been waiting on. I needed a functioning prototype for any further communications with possible investors. And I personally didn't know anything about UI UX design, and I knew Kenan was graphic designer. So when I contacted him to ask him if he was willing to help me to build the prototype, he was like, "Yeah, sure. When do you need it?" And I was like, half jokingly, to be honest, yes, I said yesterday. And he accepted, but what I didn't know was that he didn't have any experience in UI UX design. He was a plain graphical designer, and he worked for the next couple of days intensively watching tutorials and learning how to build an app. Um, until,
Maybe we can switch to Kenan to hear his part of the story when you reach out to him.
yeah,
That's
sure.
what-
Yeah, sure. Kenan, how was it from your perspective?
It was really hard. I thought it's going to be really, really easy because you have a screen, you just need to edit a couple things, but I only knew user interface side of design, but user experience was a really, really hard thing for me to do at that moment. So basically, that's where my most time went.
And the thing is, with his willingness to learn so many things and to do it in such a short amount of time, for me, led me to trust him as a co-founder and give him shares of the company. So I will probably be eternally grateful, because without him, we wouldn't be here as we are. Um, I will let Kenan interfere and give his opinions on his point of view for the rest of the story. So we were still unsure if this idea was going to become a startup, or if it's going to be, or if we were going to work on it any further. But one day I got a message on LinkedIn, because that internet fame was still going on for a certain period of time. And this guy messaged me, and he said that he has a healthcare company in Germany, and that he would like to hear more about my idea. And that was it. At that point of my life, I accepted invitation to meetings and all investors, just to see the situation out there. But most of the investors were from Balkans, specifically from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So when I came to the meeting, I came alone, and he started talking about himself, his company, and all of the opportunities in Europe, specifically here Germany. I immediately clicked it with him. I felt a strong feeling of trust and respect, and he proved me right and refused to see the prototype Kenan and I built, because he wanted to sign the NDA first, and that would protect me. And my idea. He asked me to do the research on him and to schedule another meeting in 7 days' time. So I talked to Kenan, and he was like, "That's a great idea, but it's impossible to be true." And one thing that still sticks to my mind is when he asked me, what would you be willing to risk to make this idea come true? And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Would you be willing to relocate to Germany, and to a country whose language you don't speak, where you don't know anyone, to continue working on your idea?" I said, "Sure, but I have a co-founder who I would like to bring with me." And he said, "Okay, call him to the next meeting, and until then, do your homework." And of course, I researched everything. It's checked out. I called Kenan to the next meeting, and but in the meantime, there were a lot of attempts of scam for our startup. Well, there were companies that reached out to me that wanted to. That came with propositions. For example, we'll sell 90% of your company, and in exchange, while the app is being developed, you'll get 500 euros per month. So that's about 6-7 months, and 500 euros per month, and then I'm done with the app. There was a company that wanted to give me 20,000 euros for 49% of the company, and where I would be a major shareholder, but still they have a significant amount of equity. And
What
now
made
I will be.
you, what made you refuse them? Like, I mean, you were quite early stage, and this amount of money, at least, I mean, it's quite significant portion of your company. Like 49% is quite huge. Even though like a lot of founders fell for it, and basically they give that percent of shares like for such amount of money. Can you tell all the young founders why they should not actually accept offers like this, even though like they're desperate for money early stage? That's like definite truth. But why they should not accept an offer like this.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. Especially if you have a IT startup, and you're outsourcing it, because IT solutions software is particularly expensive, and when you give a bigger equity in the start, then you will end up, when there are other seed rounds in your startup journey, you will basically come to nothing, even though the money's tempting. But when you especially, for example, 20,000 euros, that sounds wow at the beginning, but eventually you end up with nothing. You lose the shares, you lose the vote, you don't get to decide what happens to your startup, and the startup worth reduces over time with that principle. So the best thing in that case is to openly talk with your co-founders, or someone even more experienced. For example, I consulted a lot with CEOs, people who have their own businesses, nevertheless, if they're IT businesses, but I search for their advice. And I think you can, like I said, you can sense, you have a I always follow my gut feeling when making decisions. So I think that's one of the things that saved me in the beginning, even though I was inexperienced.
This is really like great story where you actually from your own need came up for one idea, and now you together going as a startup. But for our audience, can we just talk a little bit about what exactly is Motus? What kind of features about applications? So we explain to our audience for which kind, let's say, of medical health exactly is the Motus, and what end users get with the Motus application. While we are still in the beginning, then later on we can come with other topics.
Yeah, okay. I will let Kenan explain that part, because I think it's in his part of the presentation as well. So Kenan, the stage is yours.
Thank you. If you take a minute of your time right now in Google Stroke Recovery app, you will probably find a couple of them. This is good because if you do not have the competition, that probably means you don't have a target group or even need for your solution on the market. But that has never bothered us anyway, because we have pretty solid unique selling points and differentiators from the competition on the market. I'll start with the SWOT analysis, highlighting our biggest competitors on the market, their strengths, and where does Motus Health comes in the end. So basically, our three biggest competitors on the market are Tactus Therapy, Vigo Health, and CT Therapy. Out of three mentioned competitors, two of them are not even on the European market, and this is really important because they are not regulated by European medical devices laws. This means that their solution is paid for by the customers themselves. And also, they're only focused on one area of stroke recovery, which does not fulfill all the needs of one stroke patients, which leads that patients don't want multiple different apps, adjust to different interfaces, and pay for each and every single one of them. This results in patient frustration and leads to increase in cost of total. While we at Motus Health have one goal, and that is to provide everything a patient and his caretaker need in one place. And after the process of certification, clinical trials, and medical device registration, our customers will be patients, while the payers will be insurance companies. As we briefly mentioned before, Motus Health MVP is purely focused on B2C sales, where our target group is patients and their caregivers. Our market and our startup headquarters are located in Germany because they have such a great system for handling digital healthcare apps. The thing we want to speak here a little bit more is DIGA, which allows reimbursements for digital healthcare apps from insurance companies and allows medical professionals to prescribe the apps to the patients. Currently, our B2C market has over 80 million stroke survivors worldwide who are suffering from the consequences of stroke. While the incidence rate is still going up, and it's expected that every year there are 14 million more stroke each year. As we said in the beginning, it's not Motus Health is not only focused on stroke patients and their caregiver, but only and with their caregivers, which leaves our MVP in access to more than 200,000 users in the German-speaking countries. Now I will talk a bit more about problems our users are facing and how does Motus solves them all. So basically, the first problem and one of the biggest reasons Motus Health came to life is stroke recovery during COVID pandemic. During the COVID pandemic, we encountered a talk with more than 100 different stroke patients who didn't have access to proper medical care or help. And that's how we shaped our first business plan and came up with the slogan, stroke recovery from the comfort of your own home. The second problem is the whole cost of the rehabilitation process. And I want to highlight this problem with a study done by the World Stroke Organization that says that only 10% of stroke patients achieve maximal results from rehabilitation, as it's often delayed, expensive, or inadequate. And we are hopeful that the Motus app can change and improve those numbers. Third problem, that family is not being included enough in the recovery process. By the Motus Health, by creating a caregiver interface, we are not only improving the relationship quality of the family members, but we are including the patient's family in each of the steps of the recovery journey. And the fourth problem we encountered is the lack of digital solutions in the stroke market. Current solutions on the market are really, really specific. Either they are too advanced for the stroke patients, or they might even be good when the patient downloads them, but they do not challenge him during his whole recovery process or even adapt to his improvements. Also, a lot of markets do not have access to even basic apps because they were never meant to be internationalized, which leaves most of the patients struggling with digital solutions on the market, all because of the language barriers. I hope I gave a pretty good explanation about problems we are trying to solve, and I will go and explain how does Motus Health responds to each and every one of them. So the first thing that we want to say about Motus Health is it is developed and designed by medical professionals and stroke survivors. Since the initial idea of Motus Health, there were numerous medical experts who validated and gave their contribution to our product. Currently, we have 6 medical advisors who are working on further expanding the Motus features and scalability. Second solution that we provide to our users is personalized therapy with the help of AI. As every stroke patient is a case on its own, we are developing an algorithm with the help of AI that will allow our customers to get personalized therapy based on their initial results and needs, with the goal to make Motus available to use for any type of stroke and a stage of stroke recovery. Third solution we are trying to solve with Motus Health is that we can reduce the cost of the rehabilitation process, because one of our unique selling points is that for one price of session with speech pathologists or even physiotherapist, patients can get up to 3 months of Motus subscription. Then we are planning to do a clinical trials all across Europe in order to prove the quality and impact it has on stroke patients, which will allow us to state the fact that we are actually speeding up the recovery time. And the last thing, because we want to keep our patients safe, especially during the pandemic time, we encountered dozens of stroke patients and caregivers that were left without adequate medical care. Because of the pandemic regulations and inability to enter hospitals, one of our key goals is to create a whole ecosystem for stroke patients where all of the communication, drug and recovery plan prescription, tracking the improvement would be done and visible over our platform, which will be beneficial to all stroke patients while improving their well-being and reducing the chances of infection that can be fatal.
Okay, so you have mentioned quite complicated things in terms of software development that are needed, like to basically get your app where you want it to be. How did you manage the teams? How did you communicate with them? And how hard it was, because you two obviously do not have any experience in this field. Like, how did you actually establish the trust between you and development teams? And basically, how did this play for you? Emina, you're muted.
You're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So basically, the first patient that we tested the prototype on was my dad. And like I said, my dad was predicted to either die or spend the rest of his life tied to the bed. And when he started using Motus, and I used my own feedback, my family's feedback, I saw his frustrations or where he needed to improve. That's how I improved the app itself. And currently my dad is walking, talking, leading as almost normal life as it can be. There's a lot of work to be done, of course, on the app and on his recovery process as well. But that's the first initial point that we started, and then we expanded our group of stroke patients that we tested the app on.
And me as a, like, let's say, like tech guy, I'm like curious, since this is a medical startup and we know that community and they're trying to make these kind of applications as much as safe for usage in terms of GDPR, HIPAA compliance, safe to protect the data of let's end users. So as a beginners in this field, did you have like someone who guide you in the beginning for this kind of security to set up everything from technical perspective? Your team, or which is building this application, or you figure out that by yourself, or you, let's say, get some comments or some non-approvals from the, let's say, some applications or stores or something like that. How was that kind of process?
Okay, like I said, we were total beginners, and when we accepted our now investors' call to come to Germany, we went for 2 weeks, and I thought we extended our limits because we did work, but not as much as we work now, and we knew nothing of healthcare, especially in Europe and all its laws. So when we came there, we presented our entire project, show the prototype, like business model and plan, and they honestly grilled us with questions because they told us it's better for them to do it, people we trusted, than someone else, and than someone else, probably a customer, to find all of the mistakes. And then one day we sat with the lawyer. She's data protection lawyer in Germany, and she was like reviewing our documentation regarding the app. And there is a segment of an app called medication. The medication segment basically alerts users that he needs to use some type of his prescription. So, and she was like, "Do you know this segment can kill someone?" We were like, "What? This is the least harmful segment we can possibly think of." No, no, no. She was like, "Do you understand that if some type of patient, if some patient uses wrong prescription multiple times a day, it can cause death. It can cause death, and then you can just put a key in your lock of your company's door and shut the company, because that's how much lawsuits it brings." So to be honest with you, we didn't know much, and if it didn't take one person to explain, we had to go through several rounds of workshops, boot camps, and stuff like that for us to finally figure out how complex the healthcare system is, how complex the laws are, and how frequent is it changing. So basically, there are new laws or laws redone almost every single day.
Okay, so I've been following you guys for quite a while now, and I've seen that you've been to accelerator programs a couple of times now. Would you recommend other young founders and startups to actually join some sort of accelerator program? What kind of benefits does it bring, and basically, is it worth spending time there?
But I would basically suggest that not all that they should visit accelerator programs, boot camps, workshops outside the Bosnia and Herzegovina. So not only focus on their local ones, because there are so many opportunities, especially in Europe. We personally have been to several of them. For medical, aka healthcare startups, there is an organization that offers incubation and then acceleration for your type of startup. We have been to one called Patient Innovation Bootcamp, and we didn't know much about it, except that they validate the idea and then help you place it on the market. When we applied, there was over 2,500 applications and only 11 spots, and we have been admitted. And we went to Portugal and Denmark, and the time we spent there was honestly priceless. We met so many people from all over Europe, worked with the best experts in the medical field. We had like real life practice with the patients, and connected with the organizations. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities, and especially, to be honest, we were two broke students at the beginning. We didn't have any money, so we bootstrapped the entire thing. So our journeys, our startup needs, we bootstrapped everything. So when they told us, you need to come to Portugal and Spain, you are selected to participate, we were thinking, how will we be able to pull this off? And then they told us that most of the European programs are basically sponsored by European Union or some type of organizations, and that everything is paid for. So we have been to several of those programs in Europe, and of course there are local programs that offer great help. For example, we have been part of Crown Project here in Mostar that is organized by Interreg in Montenegro, Bosnia Herzegovina, and Croatia. And that was a year-long entrepreneurship journey, where you are educated on all sorts of stuff needed to boost your startup, and you work on your idea specifically. And at the end of that boot camp, there was a competition in Croatia where we were competing for 17,000 euros. So yeah, there are definitely opportunities. You just need to widen your use a bit. Be careful of more programs, websites. There are also a lot of. I would advise to get engaged in LinkedIn community, because for most of the programs, some of my connections sent me the link and told me, "Hey, this looks like a thing for you. Maybe you should apply." So yeah.
Now, you started talking about these programs, about accelerators in Europe, in Croatia, and here in local here in Bosnia. So I'm wondering, what's your opinion about startup scene in Bosnia? And let's say starting as a new startup in Bosnia. Can we just talk a bit about that startup scene here in Bosnia, and about young people, because you are now like example of how one startup is going, and probably because we are following you, we are seeing your articles on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and are you getting like messages, questions from other young people, which maybe they want to start their startup, and are they asking you for some kind of advice, and in general that startup scene here in Bosnia, and some advice where to go? Do you have some, let's say, some program that help you a lot to guide you, or to on the beginning or in some later stage?
Yeah, definitely. I think that especially Bosnian startup scene, is not developed as much as it should be. There are a lot of there is a lot of great potential as individual people, uh, groups, and there are ideas that need some kind of boosting. Of course, I think that probably the first step in Bosnian startup scene is to make some sort of accelerator or incubator, that where the young people would go through some sort of mentorship, but from real entrepreneurs. So basically, no theoretical studying. We have a friend that we met in Portugal, and he finished MBA in business, I think, business management, and we were talking to him like how it's stressful to YouTube everything. I mean, to Google everything and search tutorials on YouTube. And he was like, "Oh no, when I was studying on my MBA, we did case studies on companies that succeeded and didn't succeed, and we were learning from those types of examples." So I think that's changed my point of view, and I think that same system needs to be implemented in our startup scene. So, yeah, my advice for young people. I mean, there are a lot of potential startup founders who are still very hesitant on founding a startup because they're afraid of the things that are waiting for them. I think that that my greatest advice would be to focus. When we started our startup, so don't take my advice literally now, for every student out there, but we had to decide either we were going to focus full time on our startup, or we're going to continue our studies, and then in our free time to continue working on our startup. If at that moment we decided to continue with our studies, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be as successful. We wouldn't uh, have the same opportunities as we do have right now. So you need to focus on whatever you want, and the great things will come in time.
Well, this definitely adds tasks for us guys. So basically, I wanted to ask you, like, we are a bit older than you guys, and I wanted to check with you, like, are there similar founders like yourselves working in stealth mode right now that do not really want to publish what they're working on, or they do not want to publish, like, if they actually have a startup that actually shall solve some sort of issue like your application? And if there are, why are they remaining in stealth mode? Why do not they share the idea with us, and basically why do not they share their success with us? Because obviously we invest a lot startups, and the community definitely needs to be developed a bit faster because we are behind basically every country in the region.
Yeah, we met a lot of startups. So but even though through boot camps, workshops, or in person from Bosnia local scene, I think that in like I said, in the local startup scene, the greatest disadvantage, or the reason why they're in stealth mode, is because they don't have some sort of entrepreneurial uh, back backside backside
Yeah.
that would help them move faster, move forward. And for international startups that we met, I think that it would be probably, since we met a startup that get some sort of funds there from Sweden, and they get some sort of funds every couple of weeks. I swear to God. I think their greatest problem where they're in stealth mode is because they haven't picked their team as carefully as they should. So there's always some sort of confrontation, or between co-founders, because they're not on the same wavelength. So yeah, I think that that would be the biggest two problems that we encountered in many startups that we witnessed.
May I
And
add
maybe,
something?
sorry, please.
For this question, I'll describe the rest of teams we met in Portugal. So out of 11 of us, 10 of them were medical device apps. And we were all in the same stages of development, as some of them started even way long before us, and they were all in stealth mode. And the thing is that if all 10 teams were developing a normal mobile app, nobody would be there. And the easiest explanation for me to do is to compare developing a digital app is like a medication development, because you have the idea of what's going into the drug, but you will not sell them or even make it until you comply with all the regulations and test and validate everything over and over again.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
Comparison. So when it was the last question, because there's a couple of questions that audience wants to ask you. Is technical person as a part of the team crucial for a success of a digital startup or not? Like, what's your opinion? Because none of you actually were technical persons. Okay, Kenan had some background in like UI UX design, but that's not really related to development itself. So is this something that's important or not important in the beginning?
I mean, Kenan, feel free to add your opinion or correct me, but my point of view is that in the early stages, it is good to have it. I mean, it gives you some type of boost, but is not as necessary as one should think it is. When I developed a prototype, I made what my father needs. I listed the needs of my father. I listed the needs of myself, and then I made the prototype. When it came to medical experts, they became necessary. When it came to the time to test the app, to make content for itself, for the app. and to basically market the app itself, because it gives, having medical experts on your team gives you a great deal of credibility. But if you do not have the money in the beginning of your startup, please listen to me. Do not waste your money on it.
One question before we switch on comments and questions from audience. Just to explain, where is Motus right now, and what are like your plans, next roadmap, and the plans for this year? Just to explain a bit. And
Okay, so we currently have a lot of things that are going on. We won a prize worth 17,000 euros that is supposed to fund the crowdfunding campaign. We're expecting for crowdfunding campaign to happen in mid-March, beginning of April at latest. So we're currently really busy with that. We're moving to Germany, I think, in 2 months' time, so we can officially start working 24/7. And there is, the entire planning on starting the development of the app, finding funds for it, searching grants. I think Kenan has some sort of comment on this for since he's the PR person for for this type.
So basically, I have to add two more things. So basically, we are also working with one company from Europe that will help us on our application for AIC Accelerator. And AIC Accelerator is an officially funded European funding program that offers funds for innovative startups in key different areas. One of them is digital health, and which could possibly lead us anywhere from 3 million to 15 million euros of funding. And the second thing that is really, really important for us in the current roadmap is that we are currently in the process of partnering up with one of the big pharma's companies inside Europe in order to speed up and provide a proper go-market strategy for us, and with the help of their experts for basically finishing up the certification and some clinical studies. We expect to have Motus Health on the market around the start of 2023.
Yeah. Also, one we forgot one more step. We are patient-centered startups, so we really care what our users, aka the patients, think. And so we decided to partner up with organizations and foundations for stroke prevention or rehabilitation. And also we made the board of medical experts. So there's 6 medical experts in that board, and there we made a board for patients and caregivers. So there's 6 people in that. So yeah, we got a lot of going on. It's going to be an exciting year. We hope, I predict there will be more unexpected things to come, yeah, whether they're good or bad. But yeah, I think this is going to be really exciting year.
Awesome. So we'll just switch to a couple of questions that basically people have asked. So I mean, obviously, the most interesting thing is how we prepare for an investor meeting, and basically what do you ask the investor about like your cooperation, basically the equity shares. And the second thing that's quite curious, that we are curious about, like, would you rather take investment from a Bosnian VC or Bosnian investor or foreign investor, like that's based in Germany or somewhere else?
Okay, so for the preparing for investor pitch, I think I'm the person you should learn from, because I had such a stage fright. I was shaking all the time. My voice was trembling, and I couldn't say a full sentence out. So I had to do a lot of hard work for me to be able to present normally and somewhat logically. So yeah, I think there's a lot of preparation for the pitch itself. You know how you'll say it, what you'll say, for especially since investors have a short amount of time available. So yeah, I think the preparation is key. I think you should also prepare. There's a list of most frequent questions that include for all sorts of topics. For example, financial, business wise, technology wise. So I think you should prepare really, really well. Otherwise, we at the beginning we ended up feeling quite confused with the amount of questions that we didn't quite understand, and it took time for us to prepare everything in order to pitch perfectly for investors. And
And
for a question, VC, foreign or Bosnian, I think that depends on where is your market at. I mean, frankly speaking, money is money. But if your product is more locally focused, for example, works only in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I think you should take local VC because he understands the market so much more, and you, foreign VC doesn't have much use of it, in my honest opinion.
well, while I was reading these comments on in private chat and here the comments, I think most of these questions we covered during our talk, and maybe we can just, I think, probably what the interesting thing is for the end, like to talk what's your advice for any young people who want to start startup. For example, if you can meet you at the beginning and to, let's say you have like 1 minute to advise Emina and Kenan 2 years ago, what would that be?
My first, if I could speak to my younger self, I would say you're spending too much time stressing out and not enough time working. That would be the first thing. The second thing is maybe you're not the smartest person you think you are. Some things that you did now will require change many times over until it's good, not perfect but good. So change that attitude. And third one, I already said, it's focus. We got that advice from our investor to always focus on things you're doing. So yeah, my top three advices. Kenan, what about you?
I would say to my younger self, it may be weird, but it may be weird what I'm about to say, but read 3 books. The first is Jobs to be Done, and it tells a theory about the consumer action and how it's going to adapt to innovation. Second book is Don't Make Me Think, and it talks about how to make a perfect product or a perfect website, and it tells a lot about. And there's a one quote in this book that says, if you are trying to make a perfect website, because everybody is different, it's same like trying to climb up Mountain Everest in sneakers. And the third book is like a holy grail in the startup world, and it's Mom Test. So basically, Mom Test is a set of simple rules for crafting good questions that even your mom can't lie about, and it's really great for validating your business idea if it's good or bad.
I think with these books, this is like great conclusion of this really great and interesting story. I know
Yeah.
something to add.
That's it, I think. Thank you, guys. This was really helpful for all the people who are at the beginning and basically maybe in the mid stage of like creating their startup and their company. And I wish you all the best in the future and your next step to move to Cologne.
Let's
Thank
make
you, thank you both.
in 1 year with, let's say, extra story about Motus.
I believe we'll have many of those. Like I said, I expect many good and bad things. And of course, if anyone wants to reach out to ask more private question, Kenan and I are both on LinkedIn and other social media, so feel free to reach out. We'll be there.
Perfect.
And thank you both for having us here.
I'll hope to see you soon. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.